But you are living in consciousness with the same desires, addictions and everything else.
But still, I mean, it is I am, which appears as every form, as the alcoholic, right?
Yes.
So it's not the alcohol. Well, it's identified consciousness.
It's identified. That's the word.
Yeah.
Identified consciousness. Identified consciousness is what makes you seem like a separate individual.
Right.
But if you realize that consciousness and awareness are both the same, they're one, intertwined in other words, then you realize that your nature is awareness, aware of consciousness. Consciousness, in other words, is not who you really are.
But when you say, Bert, if you realize that you are both, you mean if you talk from oneness to oneness then?
That's right.
So if you oneness realize that you identify with certain forms and sometimes get lost, and you do not realize that, then this sort of is an autopilot.
That's right.
Okay, but if you as oneness realize that you are awareness itself, which appears as different forms.
That's right.
Then, I mean, you just look through form.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. Yeah.
So it doesn't really matter if an alcoholic dies looking for the next drink after death. I mean, it's just awareness continuing its play of being identified.
But that identified form, thinking that he needs a drink, that very need for a drink keeps him enslaved because he's identified with that addiction.
But he is identified. I mean, there is no person.
There is no person in reality.
In reality.
But in illusion, there seems to be a person, and so there seems to be suffering.
Okay.
So the person suffers, but suffering is his own way of looking from his own interpretation, you see?
Okay.
Because, here he is dying for a drink because he's been conditioned and addicted to it. But if he were to see what is happening, he'll find that it is all just a dream. And his body is just a dream. It's all because an ingrained habit relying on that reality. This is what we do with self-image. We have a self-image, and we really believe that we are this self-image, and we live from that self-image all the time. Our thoughts, like this woman, for example, that I told you about, she was very charming, loving, open, extroverted, beautiful, and then I pointed out that she had some spinach in her teeth, and all of a sudden she looked into the mirror, she saw herself looking like that, and she was so embarrassed, she couldn't even look at me after. Okay? What was suffering? So what? She could have taken it out and it's gone. But because her self-image has been tainted, because she has an idea how she should look, you see, she suffered. And she actually suffered. You see, she was so embarrassed that she didn't even want to come to that restaurant again. Because in case people have seen her with that, they're going to too. Okay? So this is the suffering. That self-image is what causes the suffering. When you are an extraordinary absence, like Jeff Foster says, then there is no self-image. You just are. And so that you are free. With spinach in your teeth or whatever, of course you overcome it and all this, and you might laugh at it. But you don't suffer from embarrassment because there is no self-image in which you suffer.
But ultimately, it's just awareness playing different forms.
Absolutely.
And, I mean, there is no one to suffer.
In reality, there is no one to suffer. Suffering does not exist.
So only from the seeming vantage point of a personal me, there is suffering and the identification of I am somebody.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
And if that dies away, you'll find you haven't attained anything, you haven't learned anything, you haven't overcome anything. What has happened is you begin to see for the first time the truth. The truth is you are. You see? Yeah. So there is nothing to identify with. So there's nobody to suffer. See, there's a difference. Yeah. And the I am which contains consciousness and awareness, both, see, that has never been born, therefore never dies.
Consciousness has never been born.
No, awareness has never been born.
Okay, yeah.
Right.
From
awareness comes consciousness. But the two are inseparable, you see. The two are inseparable. So whenever you are troubled by your thoughts and emotions and feelings or whatever, this means you're troubled by your consciousness, what you're conscious of. You see?
But when you say you mean you, awareness as you, as personal you.
That's right. Yeah. Yes.
Or awareness, no. You're talking from oneness to oneness, right?
Well, all truth is oneness to oneness, which means there is only oneness and there's no oneness to oneness. You know, like there's just only oneness. Everything is just one. Okay, but that is hard concept for the mind. That is a hard thing to grasp. But what you can see is that you are a wholeness. You're not an individual. You're just another wave of the ocean. But which means there is no wave, because the wave is just water of the ocean. You see, it was just a movement that appeared as a wave. Similarly with the human, it's a movement that appears to live so many years and projects a personality, but in truth is just a movement within memory. That's it. But the reality of it is oneness playing that role. And now, since we have the capacity of consciousness, which makes us personal, we think I am this person because we have the power to identify. You see, that's what consciousness is, identification. Therefore, we also have suffering. We have seemingly suffer because we identify with limitation. But it's only because we identify. We identify with a limited idea of me.
You see, when stillness happens, when I can be really still, I realize that there is identification and there is some underlying peace in whatever happens.
That's right.
So it only needs to be this focus on not even focus. It's all about getting onto this level of peacefulness.
That's right. Which is the true nature.
The true nature. Yes.
Which is again awareness.
Yeah. Which is awareness.
Right.
But what I find very interesting is that there is no separation between the two.
No. There's no separation about anything.
Yes.
This is the great truth of oneness. Separation is what brings us suffering. But the beautiful truth is there is no separation in anything. Remember one time you wanted to understand about form and formless. And you're trying to figure them out. They're both the same. They're both different ways. Emptiness is form, form is emptiness. So, but when we understand that, then there is no... See, a person thinks of himself as an object. And then he's deadly afraid of no longer being an object, because if he becomes a subject, then he's going to be nothing. And he feels that I'm going to be extinct, dead, finished. Okay? Which is no such thing. It cannot exist, because you cannot separate subject from object. See, the subject is an invisible thing, and an object comes from it. The object does not stay very long, but is constantly moving and changing. You see? A changing shadow, so to speak. The subject always is, never changes. That's what subject is, it's eternal. But the two are one. But when the object comes out from the subject and it doesn't know that it's the subject, then it begins to suffer because it thinks, oh my goodness, I am this object, and if anything happens to me, which of course it's changing all the time, I'm going to die and be no more. And that's the fear. See? But if you realize that you are the subject, that created the subject you think you are, then you're free.